Found their way to our temporary space for this meeting, thank you. And if you didn't sign in, Mary's signing in right there with the sign-in sheet, so if you could do that, make sure you do that before you leave. It would be much appreciated. And as always, we are recording tonight's meeting for broadcast on the Community Access Channel, so you should be aware of that. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the February 11th meeting previously distributed. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Are any opposed? So voted. Thank you. Mitch?
Yes, thank you. James is going to click forward for me. We have a few invoices to review tonight. As far as the financial update goes, we have HFH's invoice 4,300. That's for their lump sum on 66,000. And then we have PMA invoice number 9 for 11,782 and 44 cents. And if you click one more, here's the breakdown of those invoices that we included in this presentation this evening. And that's the financial update as of now.
And again, that was previously distributed in the draft presentation as well. So any questions on that? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the financial update. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Are there any opposed? So voted. And thank you, Mitch, for making those inclusions as the committee requested previously. So appreciate that.
Yep, no problem. And I'm going to kick it back over to HFH and the design team.
Sure. Okay, so we're going to start with the work plan. I'm going to go fairly quickly because we've got a lot to cover tonight. We've had 2 meetings so far in this preferred schematic report phase. Tonight is our 3rd meeting. We're going to talk about the enrollment options, and there's a lot that kind of folds into that, including sort of the organization of a new building, the organization of the grades and school structure, and the summary of spaces for a pre-K through 4. I'm going to go through. I also want to talk as part of that about the remaining sites. What happens with Howard in a pre-K through 4, and what happens with the Spring Street site, and get this committee's ideas for what's going to happen there. The MSBA has asked that we give a budget price in this submission for whatever happens on those sites. Then we'll be talking about site planning and circulation. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the traffic report that we've received. I also have you see a stranger next to me. This is Jonathan Law from Weston and Sampson. He's our landscape architect. He'll be talking about some site planning concepts. And then we just had a really successful sustainability subcommittee working group kickoff meeting. Well, that's a lot of words, maybe too many. And we're going to be sort of summarizing what we talked about there. Okay. The next meeting, we will be presenting primarily about the estimating set. The set will be, the concepts will be out for estimating. The meeting after that will present costs. And then the meeting after that, you will vote on what will be your preferred schematic, what option will carry forward into schematic design. And the meeting after that, the vote to submit to the MSBA. Okay, so at the last meeting, you've seen this slide. This slide did get reworded a little bit and redistributed, but you have seen this slide. This was what's left with in the options after talking about the limits of the site for wastewater treatment. Again, what's left is a pre-K through 4 with a septic system on site. All of these are a new school on the Roselle site. Pre-K through 4 with a septic system on site, and then 3 options that are septic or wastewater treatment off-site, whether it's pre-K through 4 or pre-K through 6. With that, we have focused our attention on the pre-K through 4 on the Roselle site. New construction is where our focus has been this period since the last meeting with the septic system on site. We are about to start some testing. We've still got some scheduling to do with the Board of Health and DPW, but we are moving forward with getting some testing to make sure that septic will work on site. But that's also, that's the assumption we're moving forward with, and that's what you'll see further developed today. The reason I bring this slide back up is I want to hear discussion from this committee on that. On essentially, we've boiled this down, and the options that are left us right now are 4, but there's one that we're moving forward with. And if there's any sort of discussion that should happen, if there's any anybody wants to continue talking about pre-K through 6, I think this is a good time to talk about it.
Scott?
I don't think a pre-K through 4 is the right option for the town in general. Because there's no money left, you're gonna have to go back and ask for more money to rehab Howard for 56. I'm assuming 56 will be there. Right? So Howard is still gonna need repairs. It's still gonna have all the things wrong with it are currently wrong with it. And it's not really set up to have older kids in. It's set up for younger kids. And if we need a wastewater treatment facility, what's the cost difference of, if we need a wastewater treatment facility, what is the cost difference if we have to pump it to the Howard and rebuild the Howard field? Okay? If it's $3 million for septic, on-site, whatever, if it's $6 million to pump it and rebuild the system, it's financially irresponsible for us not to spend the extra money to build the better school moving forward. Because we're going to have to come back to the MSBA again and say, well, now we need a 5th and 6th, or 5th, 6th, and 7th. Because we're outgrowing, at the current pace, we're outgrowing the high school. So we're going to have to build a bigger school anyways for 5th and 6th. Why don't we just take that into account now? K through 4 just doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. K through 6 is the only thing that makes sense for the town and the population growth and the kids' growth and everything like that. It seems like a waste of money, and I don't think you're going to get a lot of town approval, because there's more people like-minded like myself that are like, well, why are we only going to do K through 4? What's the point of that? When we could have spent a little extra money and did K through 6. And I know you guys are worried about going to 3 stories, but we can always ask for a variance. I know we don't grant a lot of variances, I found out recently, but we can put language in it to protect the town moving forward with variance requests for school, limited to schools or certain businesses. And I understand why we don't do it. Believe me, I understand why we don't grant tons of variances for building height.
I'd like to comment just on particularly on that last piece, just to clarify a couple of things. The first one is whether it's pre-K through 6 or pre-K through 4, we're proposing a 3-story building.
Okay.
Because of the limits of the site. Sure. But we don't have to go for a variance for height
stories.
For 3 stories.
So why can't we make it a little bit taller? Serious, I mean. 4 stories? Or, that we could add in a half, say 3.5 stories, we can add in on one on the top story.
I mean, that would be,
I'm just trying to think,
4.
Call it 4, you know what I mean? I just think it's financially irresponsible to build a K through 4 when we're going to be reimbursed for 55% of this and not shoot for the moon here. We've already reduced the size of it. We found out last week. We went from, what was 190,000 down to like 160,000 with just a reduction in some classes and stuff like that. So we're already shrinking the footprint of the building. The gym's already smaller than what I was hoping for. And I'm willing to concede some of that stuff, but it doesn't make sense. And then we gotta go back and fix Howard anyways.
All right, others? All right.
Second,
I
everything
have
is
one. It came up through, I was contacted by the health agent asking questions about the issue of the wastewater treatment plant at Roselle. do you have I remember you kind of brought it up in general about issues of DEP permitting something there. Do you have specifics on what that is? Because he wasn't aware of anything, any reason why, if we can cite a septic there, we couldn't cite a larger wastewater treatment plant there. Which, I mean, that's, because that then takes away the issue of having a pump. To Howard, I'm not on board necessarily with the full 4th through 6th grade, but that's a question that probably needs a better defined answer than we have right now.
I have just enough specifics to be dangerous. I'd rather have my civil engineer here to get into the details of it, but it does have to do with these regulations about raising the water level near wetlands, the groundwater level near wetlands.
Because we'll be raising them with a septic too.
Correct, but it's a different licensing board for it. It's Board of Health as opposed
Well,
to...
yeah, but you still have to account for the mounting under the system regardless, and treatment usually lets you get closer to the groundwater table than regular septic. So that's why this is going to come up. So I'm just kind of saying, like, you're going to need some details of actually what that means.
I think it would be a good idea, perhaps, to get our civil engineer and this was someone from DEP, you said?
No.
Board of Health. Well, Board of Health and Sammy are going to be speaking to each other because, so perfect. We're gonna, if you could get me that contact,
but the
that would be
question's
great.
already coming up, just
Right.
letting you know.
Right. No, but what I mean, immediately, they're going to be talking to each other.
Mary?
You know, I've heard the same feedback that Scott has. I didn't realize that we were talking about a smaller footprint. But if we're talking about smaller footprint, how does that tie into some of the other goals we were trying to reach with a gym and these other possible fields or these other items that are going to come into play here?
Just a quick question before I say anything more is, are we anticipating that we're gonna have showers as part of the gymnasium?
No.
So I spent literally all afternoon working on this. You know, I was contacted from the Board of Health at my request this morning. And I'm looking at the regulations. I'm 1,000% with Scott. I think that if we're going to spend the money, you've got to go pre-K through 6. If you go pre-K through 4, and then you eventually make the renovations at Howard, tear down Spring, rebuild Spring, you're not going to be far off from the original number, except it's going to be piecemeal, a whole bunch of different votes. You're going to have to continue to motivate, which is not going to work. And so I think you have to look at pre-K through 6. And it was my interpretation, if I'm wrong, I apologize. But our last meeting, the interpretation that I received, and I brought the package, was it looked like that we had said that we couldn't do a wastewater treatment plant on site due to DEP regulations. And that's why it says it has to be elsewhere.
Correct.
But I can tell you, the two guys that work for the town with 40 years of experience between the two of them, they disagree. And they have not been contacted. And their argument is that one, it's non-virgin soil, it's educational, DEP is not going to take that hard of a line on it. Granted, you may have to build up, but as Scott said earlier, that's expense. That's still gonna be cheaper than pumping all the way down to Howard or somewhere else. So you go up another 2 feet, because he went through the whole formula with me, and that's when I said, you know what, I can't see straight, forget the formula and all that. But he said to not be able to get a variance from DEP if need be, to go 3 feet, 4 feet, or whatever the waiver requirements are. But there's no, they believe wholeheartedly that wastewater treatment plant can be sited on that facility in its place. The only difference is a little bit more money to build up and to file with DEP. There'll be more sampling, there'll be more of that through DEP than local. But other than money, again, I'm not trying to spend more money, but it's still cheaper than the other options. So they feel pretty strongly about that. And the reason I ask about the showers is because if our enrollment right now is 1,250, but without showers, your flow per day is 8 gallons per day. So if our enrollment is 1245, you get to 9990, and you can do a local and not do a wastewater treatment.
Forgetting the staff.
With the staff.
No, 1250 is got to be the enrollment with staff, because the actual enrollment is 1,075. They're using 1250 in their numbers.
Well, no, 1250 is where at 8, let me make sure my math is right, but I believe that that 1250 is where it triggers to,
That's what you're saying, 99999 is.
Because it's based on the flow.
oh, you're saying reduces the, so it, no, our occupancy is around, we don't actually have it totally finalized what the staff number will be for the full enrollment, but it's in the, it's 1,300 plus.
Well, the sheet that I looked at was that you have 1,075 for student population, 1,250 for total population. When you times that by 10, you're 12,500. That's what triggers the WWTP. If you look at just going to 1245, 1242, 1240,
1249.
and you don't have showers, it's 8 gallons flow per day, you're under 10,000, it's a local septic system that can be done through the Board of Health.
Correct. I think the 1250 there was, no, I think the 1250 there was not intended to say this is the, and I don't remember this slide, but was intended to say this, not that this is the enrollment, but that this is the threshold.
Threshold, the trigger.
Well, in any event, I guess maybe we should need those questions answered, because again, I'm with Scott, is that it looks like, based on the information we had on last slide, it looks like one way or the other, it could be on-site. You go for pre-K through 6. It's up to the town, right?
So-
and then they make a decision.
So I think we absolutely have to get our experts with your experts. And we'll do that between now, we have to do that between now and the next meeting.
Okay.
And remember that we have not eliminated the pre-K through 6 as an option at this
But that's what it kind of sounds like, because they're already going forward with the pre-K through 4.
Gary, the slide says pre-K with
Yeah.
with it elsewhere. It doesn't say anywhere on it, pre-K with it on site.
Just said our assumption is pre-K through 4, which means, it says to me, that's what it is.
But as a committee, we
Yeah.
have not
No, I
eliminated
understand
and
that,
we have
yeah.
an obligation.
I don't mean to sound so
still
angry about it,
Right.
it gets me aggravated to think that we're gonna spend $170 million, and instead of going up to 180, we're balking at $10 million over a $200 million project. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me.
There's about $50 million between the two projects. I don't have,
I don't know all the numbers either.
the other thing I wanted
Yeah.
to bring up is, and I want to get the phrasing. I want to get the phrasing of this right. It's not that we know that wastewater treatment on site absolutely does not work. We know that there are a number of challenges to it, and that our experts are telling us that there's a good chance it won't work, and that we would have to carry it well past the point of a vote before we get the permitting in place. And we won't know, we'll be carrying that level of risk well past the vote. We won't know whether or not we can do it or not until after the town funding vote. And that is what we were presenting last time.
That was in the slide.
But what could happen is Sammy Otis could talk to the Board of Health agents and DEP maybe and see what that time frame looks like. But we're being told after funding that happens, right? There's conversations that these experts have. There's always that option. And like Gary said, we didn't technically eliminate that option. You guys haven't eliminated that option, so.
I'm even saying, even if you still have to pump it, it's still gonna be cheaper to pump it and rebuild the septic system than have to fix Howard, tear down Spring, do whatever you gotta do at Spring, revamp all these other buildings to bring them up to code eventually in, maybe 5 years, when 5 and 6, that population grows. When the K through 4 starts moving in, that building's too small, and then Spring is too small, and then the high school's too small. You know what I mean? It's just a trickle-down effect. And construction's not getting cheaper.
All true.
Anyone else?
All true. I mean, honestly, the reason I put this up here and asked for comments was that this is the time for this conversation.
Right, we felt that the last meeting, right, it was kind of like big pop up balloon and the whole room was silent. I mean, you're not a very boisterous group, but there was definitely a vibe of like, okay, we need to hear from people and give you the time to digest it. So we appreciate this and happy to hear more. Anyone else have thoughts about it?
And if we have to go wastewater treatment system, shouldn't we look back on the Howard site for the school and then pump it off to the Roselle site? If the MSB, if their initial thing was to put everything on one campus or near one campus next to EMS, that's what they want to do. That's what they're trying to force all these communities to do, is put everything close to. Well, that's what they're trying to make everything do.
No, they were only interested in a full consolidation. They weren't interested in.
Oh, I thought it had to be near EMS. Oh, okay.
That was more the committee's.
Oh, okay, all right.
You know, that was us.
But should we look back at
Central
Howard and see if we
District.
can get the building there, if we do have to have a treatment plant somewhere else?
The challenges of Howard still remain. It's a very tight site.
I get it.
Hold on,
And
excuse me. We need to just have one conversation.
I get it, yeah.
Scott, go ahead.
I'm just saying, because if we can look at Howard, that way it's right near the same campus, and then if we still own Roselle, if the pumping is, if it's $5 million one way, it's gonna be $5 million the other way. And you take that portion off, and the town already owns the Roselle site, so you don't have to buy land.
So you're saying build on Howard, but put the wastewater treatment plant on Roselle?
Right, and then you can wait on Roselle, and you don't have to necessarily tear that down right away.
But you would be connecting the entire town back to Roselle, not just the school
Why?
building, because everything's
It's a
connected at
single
Howard.
municipal system at Howard.
It doesn't have to be though.
But something has to be there, and if
Yeah, but that can stay there.
what's
What's there is there, can stay. You just pump the school off.
But I think if we just take Howard off, we're touching the system, and isn't there something
If
about?
You just cut cap it, done, that's it.
Sarah?
I think it's important to remember when we voted down Howard, and I was one of the first people to say, I agree, this should be a campus. The program legitimately did not fit there. So K through, or pre-K through 6 just did not fit at Howard.
But does it-
It didn't work.
But will it fit any more now with the restrictions at the Roselle? Is the site overall at Roselle still bigger than the overall site of Howard? Like if you overlay them, are they the same? Because
Once
because
once
the
you get all the wetlands out, it's pretty similar. Yeah.
yeah, once you get the wetlands out though, but the wetlands are in play.
No, that's what I meant. Once you take away the wetlands
Okay.
portion.
So if they're pretty similar, should we look back to Howard?
But again, this is what I mean by Howard's a very crowded site. The impact of that crowding on the Roselle site are you're really getting close to and crowding wetlands. The impact on the Howard site are you're really crowding the library, the parking
Okay,
at the
I can accept that.
senior
Yeah.
center.
Okay.
Yeah, and that clearly was the driving factor. I
Okay.
remember that one slide that we showed.
I should know if it had anything to do with the septic and the wastewater taking up additional area that now we got rid of because we're gonna pump it off. Okay.
In my opinion,
But-
once they flushed that through and kind of showed us that there's not really going to be parking, and now we're actually creating a new design problem.
Yeah.
And that we are creating a traffic jam in basically the center of town.
Yeah.
All day, all night.
Okay.
Because now we have 3 different schools that are dismissing, we have all the sports that are happening
Yeah.
there, but they couldn't happen there because the program.
I can totally accept all that as an answer.
I'm 100%
Yeah.
confident in their showing that the program wasn't gonna fit in
Okay.
Howard. Though it would have been nice because you
Yeah.
have that extra swash of land
Yeah.
across the street for the wastewater treatment plant, but that's just my opinion, is
Okay.
that to go back to Howard seems like an unnecessary
Okay.
step at this point, but
Like divine that.
just my
Can
opinion.
I ask HMF agent, when could we get a definitive answer on will wastewater fit in Roselle?
I'm afraid wait. will
Wastewater? Well, we
fit?
have the
Or
answer,
septic.
we have the,
Or what Scott was asking, when can we say that's definite?
the only definite we would ever get on wastewater treatment plant is to say we're gonna stick with it all the way to the end until DEP says it's okay. Because all of the experts, and there's 3 different companies that we're dealing with that all have their piece, they're all saying the same thing, is none of them are confident it will work on that site.
But we definitely have to get them with,
Right, but then we have to
Board
know
of
how
Health.
much it costs to pump it off and
Right.
redo the
So,
system.
so then
Right.
the second part, as far as when will we know about the septic, that is what we're talking about being arranged. We need to get DEP, Department of,
Board of Health.
Board of Health, but DPW, another D.
Yeah.
The DPW on site. So that's being scheduled as we speak.
and we got released to start scheduling that on Friday.
Friday.
I think it's a big part of the
So
puzzle
where
we need to
we
figure
don't-
out
we don't know
before we start
exactly.
deciding whether it's K through 4 or K through 6. And then we need a number
Right.
associated with
Right, but
it.
again, that's a septic answer that we're talking about that we are green lighted to find out.
Yeah, but I'm
Right
just saying, like,
now-
that's what we need to
yeah.
figure out, because that's gonna be, if we can figure out what the cost difference is between doing the K through 4 with the septic and the K through 6 with the treatment plant elsewhere, that's, and I think you presented to the town in 2 different ways,
Mhm.
you know.
I think the other thing to keep in mind, though, about this notion of going elsewhere with whatever it is related to septic or wastewater is, it's certainly not within the scope of this committee to be making those kind of decisions. We don't have the ability to make that decision. And the process that would have to occur with the town government, to look at that as a study of where an off-site treatment plant or septic system would go, is not going to match up with the timing of this project. So,
But why isn't it tied to this project if it's directly about this project? I'm not saying we have to say, yes, it's going there, but I understand you gotta talk to the town, but it does, like I say, it doesn't make any sense to do a K through 4 or pre-K through 4, and then have all these other things 5, 6 years down the line costing 50, 60, 70, 80 million dollars, because you're gonna have to knock down Howard and rebuild it, or knock down Spring and have to rebuild it, and there's no way the MSB is gonna give us another grant.
but just the engineering, Scott, that would have to go on.
I get it, I do that all day, I get
know.
it.
I mean, the time and the money that would take and the appropriation to make that happen, we couldn't make a decision on this project waiting for that to happen and be within the timeframe of the MSBA acceptance that we have.
So
to
what
make
you're saying
this
is
project.
K through 6 is dead.
I'm not.
That, but
no,
you are. If
I'm
you're saying,
I'm not
if you're saying
that.
we're not gonna look into it,
Are we allowed to carry an allowance or like, hey, worst case scenario if this is hypothetically, we're gonna go forward with the pre-K to 6 on how, no, where are we? Where's that?
yeah.
Are we allowed to carry the worst case scenario? Let's say we're pumping back to Howard. Can we carry that number in the budget even though we don't have the final answer to meet these deadlines? Would MSBA allow that?
I mean, I think you would want, if you're gonna, you wanna cover your,
For sure.
you
Yeah.
need to make sure that you have the worst case scenario if it's still in play in your minds.
Yeah.
I
That-
think it should be
that's
best
true.
case scenario.
But
Ah.
cost wise,
Shoot for the moon.
Cost-wise, it's the worst case though, right? And then, because otherwise, we're really knocking out things based on assumptions, and I don't think that's really the best foot forward either.
I mean, we certainly don't have within the budget for feasibility to be looking at the cost of going from Roselle with a septic discharge from Roselle to Howard or to some other third-party site. We just don't have that money to do
It's an estimated
that.
number based on,
Based off, you can use medians, you can use any type of systems that are out there. Like I said, it's just an estimate. You go talk to any contractor that does it, be like, listen, I need an estimate.
We
to do
can,
this."
we can provide a budget number for that
These
connection.
four
What we don't,
Yeah.
what we can't do with what we've got is
located.
locate it, test the ground at Howard, that kind of thing. So the site testing that would be required within the feasibility study.
And Gary, if I may add,
Sure.
you know, Mark and I have been discussing, we're not sure we're gonna hit the population number. And so, while you're doing your due diligence, I would ask again to relook at the formula that triggers the WWTP. Because I'm being told on pretty good authority, if you don't have showers, and you just tweak it by a couple of people from 1250 to 1248, 1240, you can do it on-site with the local board of health.
I was begging to be exactly where you are. I absolutely was saying, let's be at 1250, but we're not. We're about 13, if I remember correctly, we're at 1310, and we still have, I think there's still some staff to be accounted for the full enrollment.
So if
We can look back at that. I mean, I'm more than willing to go back and
Sure.
phone all those numbers.
Yeah, because, I mean, real quick math, 1,075 students, 1310, you're talking 230 staff.
75 of them are pre-K. So it's
10,
100 and-
75 plus 75 kids. So
Enrollment figure, the
1,100.
certified
So
enrollment
when
figure
that
is
was
not-
not all students.
1075 was.
Just
only
K through six.
It's
Certified number doesn't
1150.
include pre-K. They'll give you the space, but they won't certify the
Got it.
enrollment.
Okay.
1,150.
Okay, well, then that's the matching number. Then the question is that number right?
Correct.
So just keep pre-K at Spring Street. Don't do anything with Spring Street. Get them out of it, get that 75 out of there, drag your number down, or put them at
I mean,
Howard and drag
personally,
your number
it's just
down.
me speaking, but that's the worst building you want to keep.
I mean, just, well, then you get that additional number down, like Dave's saying. Then you're down around 12, whatever, 45, and then you don't trigger it. Put them at Howard.
I'm sorry, Kathy, did you want to raise something?
could, yeah.
Pre-K can't go.
Sorry, please, one at a time.
Spring Street's gotta go, period.
If staff play into that total number,
Would be educational staff. or would
no,
just be
does it
central office
include
staff?
central office staff in that total? All occupants, correct?
Yeah.
10 people.
But you could have, I hate to say it, you did have the window if you were doing a pre-K 6 at Roselle of not putting the district there. And the district saying,
I still think that's gonna, I mean, we're talking 15 people max.
I don't think
I
it's
mean,
gonna
max.
trip it, but I'm just saying,
I'm
you
not
would
thinking-
have that window.
Right, I wish it was more. I would say,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if we look,
So no,
but if we look at enrollment, MSBA's original number K through 6 was 806. We pushed hard to increase the number. 806 plus 75 is run as 900. So if we want to be at 1250 or below, 900 at 1250, that's 350 people. We could probably still go to 1,000, still get them to 1250. We just have to tweak the enrollment.
The 900 is the 900 number is the pre-K 4, right?
So the original MSBA amount was 806 K through 6. Add 75 for pre-K and rounding is 900.
When you say original, is that in the executed survey?
Yeah,
No,
that's-
I think that's prior to us having
Oh,
the enrollment meetings.
Okay.
Right, because we pushed for more,
Yeah.
figuring with growth. And there's got to be some growth. But again, maybe that's something you
Are
have to
we gonna get up to
revisit.
the average of 150 is the question.
Because if we need to go from 1310 to 1250, it's 60 people. I mean, is that doable?
Is that, my question is, are we designing using the MSBA numbers, do we have to go back to them for them to recertify? Or can we organically just readjust those numbers to say 140 per year?
Well, we've talked about,
Right.
you know, that, you know, square footage wise, MSBA assumes a certain number in a classroom, you could always have a few more, and we could reduce some square footage, which is what you're referring to, trying to like, you know, manage the size of the building.
That's
You
what we
could do
did,
that.
that's what we've done already.
We've done already in the vein of bringing down square foot, because square foot is cost. So we have been working towards that. I'm gonna let him say it definitively, but yes, you are officially gonna change your enrollment number to something distinctively different. You'd have to go to MSBA.
I think we'd have to go back because we have a signed and certified enrollment letter from the MSBA for this project for the 4 different enrollment options.
Now, if you came back with new information, this project didn't get permitted, or this site now is being used by something else and it's not gonna be developed the way we thought. I mean, I hear your expression that they pushed, but I don't know that they really did. They came with the information from the town, and I think maybe surprised is the right word. The MSBA came back with a bigger number than what, you know, we were originally thinking, right? So there could be some movement if that's a way people folks want to go. I mean, a 50% enrollment increase is pretty distinctive, but again, they saw something when they were looking at your available land and what was happening here, and to come up with what they came up with. But if there's some new information, and you know, you can even say flat out, we don't want to overbuild. We're worried about cost. We want
Well,
this to
I mean, that's
pass.
why we made some reductions of the spaces because
Right,
of the
right,
cost. So
right.
that's something we could certainly.
And all of
address
those
with
things
them.
are things MSBA is worried about. They don't want you to overbuild. They're worried about costs too. They want you to pass your vote because they're like the horse behind you, right? They do have a horse in this race. They want the success of this project as much as you do.
So, Mitch,
We'll get the answer to that question
okay.
for sure.
All right, any other comments before we move on?
Just as we went down that road, we also don't want to be in the boat saying, going back and fighting to reduce something and make it a little smaller, because I'm sure if we reduce the enrollment, we're going to lose something in square footage. And we open the building, and now we're that much closer to being overfull and not having enough space in a building we just built. I mean, again, I think the key is the answer, the real hard answer on that wastewater treatment plant. Because if they can do that, and the agent and the other people, guy in town here that deals with that stuff is right, and they can put that in, and even if we have to take a risk in terms of waiting for the final permit from DEP, that might be the way we get the PK through 6 and have our enrollment there. Because you're still talking taking a significant number of people. I know it is. When we built this thing here, we risked right through the end until we turned it on. Because we get the DEP had given us final approval on the system that this building feeds into and all the other townhomes. So we had to move
So
forward.
you're used to risk.
Well, we had to move forward. Roll the dice, man. Because of schools. The schools had to be able to discharge waste, so we had to have the thing online. I know what we had to do.
Is there anyone here thinking differently? That no way in heck she could be going for pre-K 6? Just,
Taking the temperature of the room.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you all are here because, you have, you're a good cross-section of the community, right? I mean, and so trying to get that sense is important for all of us to hear from each other. Not that we don't want to hear more from you, Scott.
Well, I think it's the reason why they both, in spite of what the slide says, both options are technically still on the table,
Right.
and that's what went forward with the first phase report. So that's where we are. All right, James.
Okay. All right, so you've seen this diagram before. This is a diagram that kind of was derived from the pre-K through 6, but here's, sorry, let me just pause. What you're going to see moving forward focused on the pre-K through 4. That's going to be tonight's presentation. We've heard that really good conversation, and we'll figure out what the next steps are. But this is a pre-K through 4 diagram. It's kind of based on the pre-K through 6, but it's got a lower school with pre-K through 1 and an upper school with pre-K through, with 2 through.
I love how you're pointing at your.
Is that what I'm doing?
I'm like, I don't see anything.
Maybe I should just stand back.
That's a good idea.
Pre-K through 1 in a lower school and pre-K 2 through 4 in an upper school with shared stuff shown in the middle. The cleanest translation of that is this. What you're looking at here is it's just a diagram, but it's what's called a section through the building. So this is up, not north. This is the first floor. This is the second floor. This is the third floor. And all this is really showing is a lower, just like that diagram, a lower school on this side, an upper school on this side, shared stuff in the middle, pre-K, K1, 2, 3, 4 grades, obviously. We did here kindergarten on the second floor, away. So we've also have another diagram. This isn't as clean in terms of upper school and lower school, obviously. It does solve the question of pre-K and K on the first floor, but the school, the upper school and the lower school are much more sort of mixed together and much less clearly defined. In talking with the educators, we had a meeting yesterday. We have developed a new option, and it's going to change that diagram that I started with, where instead of thinking of this as as an upper school and a lower school, we start thinking of this as an early education center on the ground floor with pre-K and K both on the ground floor, and an elementary school with 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is kind of where we've landed for now. It changes how you think about some of the shared spaces, sort of the cleanness of the separation between those two concepts. We're also showing a separate entry at pre-K, which was something that the educators were excited about. As we develop more and more, as we develop the options on site, we'll also be looking at options that take the central shared programs and show them on the end. And the site is going to inform that a lot. There was sort of a preference, an immediate preference for this one because of reduced travel times. So that'll be sort of a factor that gets weighed in to that decision. Now, as I stand here talking about this, I don't really know what this means when we start looking at pre-K through 6 again. And we're going to have to sort of think about that as a
Variance request, another story.
Right.
I do feel like, hold on, to back up a little. I do feel like, so I'm with you on the pre-K through 6 for sure. But I feel like this group as a whole, like at the last meeting, or not as a whole, there was more, I think the community is going to accept the cost of a pre-K through 4 more than they are the pre-K through 6. And I just don't want to go down the wrong rabbit hole next week and then
Oh, I thought it
kind
was
of
the
go
other way.
back to that thought process.
I thought it was the other way. The town as a whole would look more closely at a pre-K through 6 than a pre-K through 4.
No, I think Sarah's
I'm
correct.
asking what this group was
Oh.
saying, because I know I'm where I stand.
Yeah.
I'm one person, right? I do feel like there were people in this group that felt pretty hard, like that the cost, the sticker shock of a pre-K through 4 was not gonna get, and it seems like people have flopped, and I just wanna make sure, like us pre-K through 6, didn't kind of lead this charge today, and kind of like gauge the temperature of the room.
So the
It
round,
seems
the round
very
number
different.
difference,
Yeah.
150 or 195? Round numbers.
I mean, I'll volunteer. I'm one of the ones that, I mean, I don't particularly care whether it's through 4 or through 6. I want us to have a project at the end of this that gets voted for at the town meeting. And I think that 50 million is, if that 50 million was the middle and the next one up was higher, I think we might be able to get into that one, but where it's that 50 million and we're right at the most expensive thing we've looked at, I think that's going to be a hard sell at town meeting.
So you
And
think,
I'm afraid that could kill us doing anything coming out of this. And to me, pre-K through 4 would be better, with limited improvement to Howard, is better than nothing at all, and coming back in 2 years to try again. That's my, and that was, I've been that way from the beginning. I don't care what the grade configuration is, I'm worried about the number.
right, and I just didn't want like us and our views on the, we would prefer the pre-K through 6 and not to just not something else overshadow what other people might have, because at the end of the day, that is gonna hinder our moving forward in the time frame, right?
Yeah.
So if there's others.
Yeah, and Sarah and Art, I think both your assessments are accurate in terms of where we were at the last meeting, and which is why you'll recall I made the comment that at least in my mind, in pre-K to 4, we are better, quote unquote, in a better position for supporting what the school committee was trying to do with the original statement of interest submissions to MSBA to replace Roselle and Spring Street. That was all they were trying to do at the initial get-go, was pre-K to 3, basically. And pre-K to 4, if that ended up being, made sense from a budget standpoint and had a better chance of passing and getting us in a better situation than where we are today, then that may be a route for us to go. But again, I'll make that statement on the notion that we haven't decided yet. So, but I think that's the essence of the discussion at the last meeting.
And just to address the Howard School, I mean, it would, and I think there's a slide later about the Howard School, it will fit 5 and 6.
With the larger enrollment number.
We do so 6 classrooms, and then we do have some specialist classrooms. It's an older building, but it was fully renovated in '93, so, and I will say the classroom's a little bit smaller than the argument goes out. So is it perfect? No. Could we move 5 and 6 in there, or keep 5 and 6 in there on 2 different wings, sustainable for, quite a few years? I think so, minor things. But I also hear the comments about wanting, all at the same time. But it's not the condition as guys at Spring Street's in. I think that building is just not, it's past its viable life.
So,
So, sorry.
no, you.
So from like a moving forward standpoint, in the most efficient manner, would it be fair to say, keep going how we are now, the 1 through 4, well, in the back end, because this is a feasibility study, so you're studying all of these things, but, you know, what's the most efficient one for us to keep moving forward here, so we're also not having you spin your wheels on all of this, where we can still get the answers about, you know, say the cost of pumping and the realistic, can we get the wastewater treatment plant? What do you guys think is the best
So,
foot
so
forward?
what, the typical process at the end of this phase, feasibility study phase. So we started it with 7 or 9, I lost our number, of,
9.
you know, sort of 9 options, 3 of are just renovation only. They're things that MSBA says, keep them on the chart and put a number to them. So these, sorry, pointing to the slide that's not there anymore, all of those are still on that chart. I mean, what we're finding is the distinction of septic, wastewater treatment not on site in these added costs, but we would budget that in and have that chart. But the end of this phase, we are supposed to be writing up a report that recommends what we want to move forward with into schematic design. So that's, as they say, the rubber hits the road at that point that we're making that decision. And you will have numbers in front of you.
So the schematic design is where we've made the
Schematic
choice
design,
about
you're
what the
schematic
configuration
designing
will be,
one
what the
option.
location will be, and that's what we're gonna bring to the town for a vote later on, once the
Right, so the
design
end of
has been
schematic
completed.
design that you've really looked at that one option and you're really feeling comfortable with the numbers. Everyone's comfortable with those costs because we've developed something to that point. That's what goes to the town.
So we
So
have
we
we
can-
vote on a preferred option, but the other options are still presented to MSBA. They
For sure,
right.
but for this moment and moving forward with getting to the preferred option, what is the better way to go? Is it to
They
continue
still have a
down the
lot of
road?
due diligence to do for us to even make that decision.
No, for sure, but
Right,
next week, would you, or the next meeting, would you show us the pre-K through 4 again, or are we now?
I think we have to digest this a little bit and figure out what our next move is.
Okay,
I'm
that's
not
what
sure.
I was just trying to get to. What's the more efficient way to go? Is it more easier for you guys at the end if things start shaking out, like pre-K through 6 is more possible? Is it easier to add that or subtract that? You know what I mean? In your
Right.
design and
Right.
in your process.
Right. And I think, I mean, again, I think we can still be working on a footprint that's the bigger footprint as well. I mean, that, we're happy to do both of those. What we were sort of coming down to was, are we really, really talking about X? And so why wouldn't we put more of our effort on that to get it in that better, you know, position to move forward, right? But it is feasibility study, we do have all these on the table. So if the direction here is to keep the 2 track of the 2 sides of the buildings, still only on one site. No, we're not going backwards on that, guys. Still only on one site. That is doable. And again, you know, some of this information about cost first of all, we got a lot of experts in the room when it comes to wastewater treatment plants, but our estimators, our consultants, we'd be able to put, we're not designing any of that stuff now, we wouldn't be anyway, cost towards that. The real hole is where it would be. So you know, that's the hole that I don't know that we have, you know,
Well, and
the
there has-
ability to finalize.
There'd have to be some direction given as to where it should be. I guess, because we have to make an assumption when we give a budget price for it. So if it's on Howard, if that's the only place to put it,
We
means-
know
it
it's
means
gonna
that
trigger the whole town.
The whole town's on it. If it's not on Howard, then it's just serving Roselle, the new Roselle. So there's a cost implication there. So we'd have to be given some direction on where it could go.
Kathy?
Yeah, just a thought, not to derail it, but if the site was Howard, we'd be demolishing the Spring Street School. Why wouldn't we just connect the Howard pre-K to 6 to a septic where Spring Street is? a septic or wastewater, I'm using them interchangeably.
Your town size of your septic would be increased by 3 grades.
Right, but why wouldn't we separate then from the town?
You're
So you're
saying
saying
a
school septic
a second
at
septic.
Spring Street.
And
The
the Spring Street location, because the Howard location's really close to Spring Street, then you're disconnecting from the rest of the town.
The Spring Street site is the same as this site.
All so connected.
It's part of this site from a, site point of view. It's one site. And this site pumps there. I'm not sure you'd be allowed to build a septic here and pumps this there and not consider it cumulative. I don't think so.
So where does this pumps to where? Spring Street?
This building pumps to Howard.
And so does
Okay,
Spring
I
Street.
see.
Everything, this building,
But-
Spring Street, public safety.
Right, comes to Howard.
Yes.
So if you replace the Howard building, but, and left, took the Howard building offline, kept everybody else online going to the Howard area, it's not under the Howard, but then the new building at the Howard site has wastewater septic where the Spring Street building was. I don't know, I've just,
Well, then we'd be demolishing 2 buildings with nowhere to put any of those students until the new building is built.
we
Right?
wouldn't be demolishing Roselle.
No, but we wouldn't have 4th, 5th, and 6th and pre-K and kindergarten in a building.
Well, you wouldn't
No, I
necessarily
mean, the
bring-
students wouldn't have a building to go to, right? Because you have to demolish them, build the septic, and then.
I don't know what.
Yeah, there's some
you're gonna do.
phasing that would happen.
Yeah.
There's-
I mean, I would just put this out, just based on what Gary is saying. I would say that the chance of finding a separate site just for our new project on Roselle, and being able to do that with town approval to expand your charter to actually work on 2 properties at the same time is much more likely, and I'm using that facetiously, than getting into changing the entire town septic system. Because that seems like a can of worms. Again, just channeling Gary's thoughts on this in terms of where is your dance space of what this committee is supposed to be doing and not. And so those are 2 very different things. Finding another spot just for what we're doing as a committee is a leap, because now you're impacting another town site and someone has to approve that. But the leap to then change all the town septic, to me, seems like a real bridge over, that's my
Troubled
mind.
water?
Yeah, over something, yeah.
So I have been looking back at the original properties that we had looked at for building sites, and it says that there is one on North Elm Street that's vacant, that is a potential build site, and it is right across the street from Roselle McDonald School. Why would that not be looked at?
So I
for
think what
lease?
that's referring to, I'll look to David for help on this. I believe it's in R2, I believe it's the water department's potential future well site. Which is not one, we had enough issues with the water department in building this building because of being adjacent to that aquifer, as opposed and trying to go forward to actually building on the property. And they're holding that for a future well site. Dave?
I'm glad that Sarah brought up the issue about cost. Because at the last meeting, and I think that reviewing the presentation earlier today, we were really just discussing pre-K through 4. And I felt that at the last meeting, we transitioned to pre-K through 4, not based on cost, but based on the wastewater treatment issue. But we never really had a full vetting discussion about cost. And again, I'm not a resident, so it's gonna be your money. But I wanna make sure that everybody's looking at real numbers. It is true that the total vote at town meeting is gonna be 150 or 200, based on what we're looking at. But the net cost is 75 to 100, assuming a 50% reimbursement, making numbers even. So it's 25 million. How it's gonna have to be renovated. So just to say 75 to 100 is not the end all. There's gonna be more expense. And in operating 2 buildings versus 1, there'll be a long-term operational expense that's gonna shrink that delta as well. So again, it doesn't matter, it's your money, I think everybody just has to make sure that when you're making that comparison, it's not just 150 versus 200. There are other variables that's going to shrink that difference.
Kind of going on that, can we look into a study and gather information? I think it's important to put out there what the operating costs will be if Howard was still running and capital improvements that may need to be done over the next 5, 10, 25 years. And I think that's, people are going to ask that question, what has to be done at Howard?
Yeah,
If
they kinda
it's
asked at the
pre-K to
last
4, what needs to be done, what systems may need to be replaced, other things that need to be done. So I think we need to vet that out so people can see that. So
Well, we had done the chart early on with just the dollar signs adding up, which was, you're not off scot-free on Howard, right? You still need, there's just not an exact number to that at this point, but that's what we're getting at.
So when we talk about bringing a proposal to the town for vote, we are taking the final product from this committee. We're not going with options to say, you pick this.
No.
So we're not really going to be presenting 195 versus 150. We're going to say, here's all the work that we did. You can check all the numbers that we have, but this is what the school that we're proposing is going to
But
cost.
we certainly would do plenty, again, comparing what we did with this building, we'll do plenty of informational sessions leading up to that vote.
Yeah.
And again, we went forward with 5 options for this building, 2 new construction and 3 addition renovation options. So we would present all the information for all the options and why we came to the decision we did, whether it was pre-K to 4, pre-K to 6, whatever it might be.
Yeah. But we're not going to come out of the vote saying, oh, we thought we were going to get the pre-K through 6 and we've got pre-K through 4.
No.
That's not.
You'll go forward with a single motion
that's-
for a single project with a single scope and design and
So it might be a
That's
harder
what
sell
killed that.
to go in with a number like 195, but if that's what we go with, that's because we've all decided collectively that that is the best option for the town.
right.
Yeah, that's what killed that, when we built that complex with the fields. We went with 5 different options and everyone voted for a different option. Nothing passed.
I do want to just take this opportunity to remind everybody, because it's important to keep it in mind. It's outside of this detail of the conversation, but it's important to keep in mind that with all of the caps and limits on MSBA's grant, it's not going to be 50, it's not going to look like 50%, it's not going to look like 46%.
The
Okay.
number guy over there knows that.
Okay, great.
And going forward with the pre-K through 6, and the way we shape it, we're going to the town basically saying, we don't know how we're going to do septic or wastewater treatment. So that's also a risk to consider, which is.
So then, at that time, we would have to have some work done by the town for a water treatment plant. Right, so that's something that would have to go to the town meetings for approval, right?
I don't understand the question.
So if we decide we want to build a school that needs a water treatment plant, and
That we
the
can't
town,
put- that
the
we
town
can't put on
votes to
site.
say, yeah, go ahead, build that school, we think you did a good job trying to find the best option. We still have to solve the water treatment problem. And then that has to be done on the town's dime without
If it's on
reimbursement
another
from the
site.
state.
If it's on another.
Yes,
site.
if it's on another site. So we'd have to make some kind of proposal to design and build the water treatment plant and bring it to the town meeting and ask for.
As part of this
approval by
project.
the People.
You mean as part of this project?
It would have to go with this
Yeah,
project.
okay, that's what I meant.
If it's on the site, then it is a part of the project. If it's some other location, we've got to find some way to get that done without it being included in this project. And there's that piece that has to be connected. You can't really open a school without the water treatment plant.
It has to happen first. It has to be built first.
Oh, so it has to be built first, so
Right.
we can get the
It
approval
has
for
to
money
be,
and then.
it has to be built first, the existing building tied into it, so that we can build on top of where the existing septic is, and then build our new building.
So the
And then-
construction
and
of
then
the school.
But if it happened, if the wastewater treatment plant's elsewhere, it
Either
would be
way.
parallel.
Either way, it's got to be built first, so that we can tie in the existing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we could get the approval to build
No?
the school and say, don't do anything yet, don't break ground, we have to get the water treatment squared away first.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always the scheduling and the phasing conversation. I think our biggest hole is that we don't have a location for it. I think that's the thing that's, so.
All right, James?
Yeah. Did you just apologize? Please don't. That needed to be said. That was really important. Okay, so I think I've got through this. Any questions on this? Good. Sorry, I should pause longer than that.
You're going backwards, but other than that.
No, I didn't go backwards.
You did, okay.
So what this means, what this change from, from upper school to lower school to early education to elementary and elementary school means is a change to this diagram, which you see here, with an early education center, pre-K and K, and an elementary school 1 through 4. The elementary school has the extended learning commons embedded within each grade. The early education center does not. So it's a change to this sort of organizational diagram. Okay. So moving on to summary of spaces, we've been working with the educators, re-looking at the pre-K through 4, getting really into the nitty-gritty. At one point, we had lowered we were trying to keep these two numbers. This is, okay, sorry, let me give a little more context. This column is what the NSBA allows. This column is what is being proposed. And we have been trying to keep these two numbers the same or this number lower. We've recently brought back some space savings that we showed you, and we had reduced the number of classrooms, which reduced this number, and the number of kindergarten classrooms, which reduced this number. So recently we have just brought this back up to 900. We had it at 880 to make these numbers match. That's a change that recently happened. It increased our size by 500 net square feet. Don't worry, we're going to make up for it in future slides. And we're still well under the NSBA guidelines.
And that's to get fully reimbursed from the NSBA.
Mm-hmm.
And this amount will be fully reimbursed at your rate minus caps, et cetera. Yep. We also increased the number of resource rooms to have 1 per grade, K through 4. We were at 4. We were originally at 6, and then we went to 4, and there was some discussion, a good discussion about that. But we made them smaller. They were 500 square feet. We've gone to 300. We're going to tie those in with the special education pull-out spaces. So there'll be a pull-out space at 125 and a resource room at 375. I'm going to need to go into a little less detail and pick things up a little bit. The big picture is we decreased by 500 square feet. This is special education. You've heard me talk about this before. We're well over the MSBA guidelines. That's kind of to be expected. They always are. This will, at the end of SD, at the end of schematic design, this program, the special education program, will be submitted to DESE, and when they approve it, this full amount will be eligible for reimbursement by the NSBA. In art and music, there was a discussion about the music and practice room. That's been cut out, decreasing our square footage. We also are showing, as we have been, a 6,000 foot gym, and that kind of keeps coming up. And so I wanted to sort of reintroduce this slide. This is a 6,000 square foot gym. These are the 2 existing gyms at Roselle and at Howard. They're, well, you can see it. They're 3,700 square feet. They're both about 3,700 square feet. So significantly smaller than what we're proposing. But as has been pointed out, 6,000 square feet is smaller than what's here. This is a 6,000 square foot gym. It fits a full court basketball court, and sort of 2 small courts across for gym class. Any discussion? I remember now. I should stop at each slide. Any discussion on anything you're seeing so far? Okay. Dining and food service. We're basically matching the MSBA. We're two feet smaller. and medical and admin, we have added a second bathroom to the medical suite, increasing by 60 square feet, which is a little bit over the MSBA guidelines, but the total of admin and medical is less than the MSBA guidelines total, and we think we can kind of negotiate with them and hopefully let them pay for that 50 square feet to reimburse for. Custodial, other are the same. Other, just to remind you, contains the pre-K classrooms, 5 pre-K classrooms, and the district offices. So the ultimate outcome of this is a better program. It doesn't really hit the bottom line very much. I think we reduced by 50 square feet the total square footage after all of these, but we are, we're really working through what an early education program and a elementary school, this sort of conceptual shift, also means for the bigger spaces, or the spaces as a whole. Any questions? Yeah.
I didn't see any auditorium in there. Is that mixed in with the gym?
It is a
Cafeteria.
It is a cafeteria. Yeah, and it's the cafeteria, and then there is a stage in the cafeteria section of 1,000 square feet.
Which is all that's allowable for an elementary school.
It's all that the MSBA allows for. They don't have
No
an
standalone.
auditorium.
Yeah, I didn't know. I know we talked about a cafeterium type thing.
Could be both, depending on design, you could back it up to both the gym and the.
Yeah.
Right, that's that. Okay, so I'm not as sure that this is the right conversation for now, and I'll ask the committee to help guide me. My plan was to talk about, well, if it's a pre-K through 4, what happens to at the Howard site, and what happens at the Spring Street site. What do you think? Is this
We're here.
a reasonable?
That's- Either way, we're gonna be looking at it. You might as well give us what you
Okay.
have. And
Sure. Yeah. So you've seen this.
Oh, an hour in.
You've seen this diagram. Yeah, and we've got a lot to cover, but I can do this fast. You've seen this diagram minus the hatching. The hatching says these spaces are more than 10% smaller than the MSBA guidelines. So you can see that the classrooms in this wing are too small. The classrooms in this wing are not, based on MSBA guidelines. The program that's missing from what the MSBA would give you in a 2-grade school for 300 students is 1 classroom. And we've kind of been thinking of that as the bubble classroom, right? If you have a bubble year, you might need to, be able to absorb that bubble. A media center, a library, no library, and a few of the smaller special education spaces. In my mind, you could move the 4th grade out of Howard, have the 5th grade kind of expand, 5th and 6th grade kind of expand into it as a no-cost project. How long it is good for, it should meet the enrollment with these, missing pieces. But how long the systems are good for and things like that is a different question. Sorry, any discussion of this?
The whole discussion that we're talking about, it does seem a lot more possible to have 4 and 5 there. From a teaching standpoint,
Okay. Do you want to address the ability to?
No, I mean,
from a teaching
if we
standpoint?
had to go to 7 sections, we could do what's been done over time, is taking specialist classrooms, which are included here for a few of them, but not all of them, in STEM.
And STEM, right.
But the classrooms are, as you know, some of them are smaller, and would consider right here the 6th grade, where they're at now.
And then I was going to sort of open it up to what would happen with the Spring Street site, whether or not you keep the building and repurpose it, knock it down and build something out there, knock it down, that something could be a field. But what we should be budgeting for. Any discussion of that?
Is that gonna go in the budget, what we do with
Well,
that, or is that?
MSBA has a funny sort of part in their language, which is if you are giving up parcels, like you're consolidating, and so now they want to be sure that you as a population agree to that. Meaning you understand, and I'm not talking about just you all, but voters understand that this will be given over to the town, it will stay in the school building, it will be demolished, that there's been discussion. I don't know why, I would kind of sort of feel like, well, why is that their business? But I think, if I was to project, I think to their minds, it means a total buy-in and a successful vote. That there's an understanding and a package of understanding that's going on. Again, are you held to it? No. So there isn't anything, and it isn't part of a vote, it isn't part of that. It's literally us being able to write in our report that we discussed this, that the committee thinks there's a lot of great potential uses for it, or flat out they think, boy, the high school site's pretty crowded and we'd love to have another ball field and more parking, right? And what we need, so this is us discussing it. So.
Right now, you have the other, would be going at Roselle. You're taking admin and moving admin there in those floor plans you were just showing.
Yes.
That you've been showing us.
Yes.
Please demolish it.
Yeah.
Please.
Get rid of it. I'm looking for my
Yeah.
septic
Yeah.
system.
That school is sinking, literally sinking into the ground. We've had issues with water coming in all around it for years. The septic system constantly runs. And Art and I are unbelievably wondering where it came from until we finally investigated to the point where we didn't have, any choice but to say, you know what? We can't replace it. It is what it is. It runs all the time. And anybody that remembers when it rains more than one day, the field between the school and the next house is underwater.
Yeah.
And it gets up to a foot deep. So, we gotta get rid of it.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty small section that just says basically what you just said
Yeah.
before. Tear it
Just
down,
say
and
goodbye.
look at some future use that may include parking and or field and be done with it.
It doesn't cost us anything to maintain.
Right.
All right, next.
Cut the grass in the house.
Yeah, I'm coming just a second.
Is that what you wanted to hear?
Perfect.
Nice job, Jim.
Mark, you're
Okay.
gonna have to move your office.
Whatever you want from me.
I'll make room somewhere.
Okay. We have received a traffic study from our traffic engineer. You'll recognize maybe you'll recognize that this is a bird's eye view of the existing Roselle School. What happens now is the blue line. Sorry, I'm hitting the wrong button. Can you get me to the presentation mode again?
Oh, yeah.
The blue line is how cars, parents come in. They stack up all on here, and at drop off they come here, and there's people helping, teachers and staff assisting kids getting into the cars within this sort of yellow zone. Then when the buses come in, the buses take this red route. They come in, they pick up or drop off here, again, within this sort of orange zone. And when that happens, the cars are allowed to pick up at the green zone and kind of circumvent the loop a little bit. That's the existing condition. The other thing and so we're going to be showing you in future slides some potential new solutions, new conditions. But the other thing that we have to look at is what does it mean to bring a lot more cars onto this site? What you're looking at here from the traffic report is the number of cars. Let's just look at the first two lines. The number of cars in the morning. This first column is the existing Roselle site with about 292 students currently enrolled. 144 cars enter, 94 cars exit, it means about 50 cars apart. What we're looking at when we look at a pre-K to 4 or a pre-K to 6 is well, sorry, let me do one step at a time. First, just enrollment increase. Grades 1 through 3 from 299 to 455. Just enrollment increases the number of cars coming in to about 225. It increases both numbers by, well, no, that's not true. Sorry, it increases this by about 75 and increases this by about 50. So there's 50 cars parking here, so there's 100 cars driving in and out. Here there's sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble with my math. 150 cars coming in and out. That's just enrollment increase. Then you start looking at grade 4. Grade 4, let's look at this number. Grade 4 is increasing the number of trips in by 264 and out by 171. The point is just as you get bigger, it's proportional. As you get bigger, obviously, there's a lot more cars. And on site, there's going to be more traffic. And the bigger you get, pre-K through 6, the more so. So here you're looking at increasing the number of trips in by 481. We're currently at 144. It's a big increase. Okay. Any questions on this? I don't think I explained it very well. I apologize. But the key to it is pre-K through 4 increases by, not quite a factor of 2, and pre-K to 6 increases by not quite a factor of 3.
I do have one question. I don't know this about start times in the schools. Would that be increasing them all for a same start time? It's 1 through 3 and 4 through 6 start school at the same time?
This is assuming, well, this is irregardless of start time.
Well, that's what I mean, though. It'd be a lot different to have 481 cars all at once or spread out over 3 hours.
That's something we're gonna definitely have to study and look at.
Well, I was just
Stagger
wondering, I don't know how
start
that
times.
was set up, how it operates now, that's what I was curious.
Yeah, the start times now are staggered.
They're half an hour.
I think clearly they're gonna have to be in the future building.
They'd have to be staggered.
Okay. Well then, in that case, we need to dig into that. These next slides assume that drop-off is happening all within the same hour and that pickup is happening all the same hour, that there's a peak hour, and that's kind of what traffic engineers tend to look at.
I mean, the grades
that
now,
peak
even though
hour.
there are different buildings there at different times, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
Correct.
So in the same building, they have to be staggered.
Okay.
But if there's only a half hour between them, it's still
Right.
happening
Still only
within
an
the
hour.
same hour.
Depending on how many
From the
staggers you
traffic
do and how many,
How early
right.
do people
You
get
might
there
not
to drop
have to
off
bring
now?
that up.
Well, we just won't allow that anymore.
So, I mean, I guess, James, if your point is you don't want to spend a lot of time because of that assumption tonight.
Well, you guys, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, I'm going to spend a little bit of time. You have these slides.
Right.
But I want to tell you how to read them. Essentially, so obviously, Stepping Stone Drive and North Elm, that's the intersection at the end of the school driveway. An A is really, really good, and an F is not so good at all. So, it's a system you know. What I wanted to show was that increasing the number of students to pre-K to 4 or pre-K to 6 really has an impact on site. Doesn't have a huge impact off site. It's different based on which intersection you're looking at. But, you know, the North Elm Street and Crescent Street eastbound approach is bad now and is going to be bad later in both of these conditions. And you're going to see that kind of thing. Or, you know, this one goes from an E to an F, so it's stepped down. And I think that's the big picture. Some of them do get much worse, especially when you get to the Crusade 6. So, you know, take a look at this. We'll explore the staggered time and the impacts of that. But just understand that when we bring, you know, more than twice the number of students and, you know, more than twice the number of cars, there's going to be traffic on this site based solely on the large number of trips.
James, is it accurate to say if we had 2 start times, it would be roughly half?
I don't think so, because they would be about a half an hour apart, and I think that they could overlap into each other, but we can ask our engineer to look into that. But I think we need to talk about start times and which grades and things like that. So
Sorry.
I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
recall for the initial site study, that entry stepping stone drive, are you changing it?
We are proposing changing it to have less of an S-curve. There's a little bit of work to be figured out about how the septic will fit and where the septic goes and how that road goes. We haven't gotten into a lot of detail on that.
But remember, in fact, the question came up during the public forum. We're not talking about doing anything at the stepping stone in North Elm. The changes would occur once we get inside of the property.
That's fine, there's nothing worse than being parked there and the bus coming at you and you're like, oh my God, am I going off this hill right now? That's a really narrow street.
I mean, I don't believe, does it show up here? No. I don't believe we will be able to really widen until we get past those 2 residents, you know, on either side.
Yeah,
but I think after that we can widen. There's some work to figure out. Well, if we widen, what happens when we cross that wetland buffer? Do we have to narrow so that we're only, you know?
Or even if you straighten it out, I feel like it would be a little
Right.
more.
Right. But getting a little wider would help too. Okay, so with that, as I mentioned, we've got Jonathan Law from Weston and Sampson. The things I want you to sort of focus on, and he's going to guide you in focusing on these, but as you look at these, are where are the buses traveling and where are they dropping off? Where are the parents traveling and where are they dropping off? Where are the entries to the building? And where's the green space in relationship to the building? And in relationship to hardscape. So he's going to show sort of 4 concepts. I'm not even going to call them options because it's not like we're picking. These are 4 concepts, and we'd love to get some feedback on those things specifically, and then of course anything else you want. So this button over there.
And James, the footprint that's shown of the building itself is neutral on whether or not the issue is up to grade 4, up to grade 6.
No, the footprint that is shown in these is pre-K through 4.
Okay.
3 stories.
3 stories.
Good evening, everybody. Jonathan Law, Weston Sampson, here to talk to you about the site and the options that we have. As James mentioned, we've produced 4 concepts, all similar, all include parking, all include vehicular and bus drop-off routes. And we first visited the site, you all know this site, so I'll quickly talk about this. We visited the site, beautiful fall day last year. Was very excited about the site. It's very flat, which is great for ADA accessibility, so making all pupils feel welcome. In the back, great open fields. The current playground is not really ADA compliant, obviously very tired. Mulch surfacing, and then unfortunately the kids are mostly playing on bituminous, which again in today's society with urban island, thinking about climate change, is not ideal for them. So we did some quick concept studies. We're excited about these. I hope you are. And so I'll quickly talk about those now. So concept A, just looking at the screen here. So in all these schemes, there's an access road that goes around the entire site, which is required by the emergency services. So every scheme has the same or different route that goes all the way around the entire building. In this first scheme, you'll see that in all schemes, the carpool route is the red line and the bus route is the orange line. So this scheme, the carpool goes around the entire perimeter and it drops off on the western side of the Central Park portion of the building. The bus route again comes down Stepping Stone Drive and then loops around through the parking lot, through the new parking lot, and has an area in front on the northern side of the building. And again, the pupils will get off there and walk to a central location entry at the building there. We have 3 different parking areas with a total of 106 parking spaces. Delivery and receiving on each one of these options is always on the south side of the building, just off the exterior loop drive. So then this is a little bit more detailed. We looked again conceptually how the site could work, thinking about children play. Is it structured play? Is it imaginative play? So obviously having a large play field where they can just run around and play how they want is very important here. There's a larger playground and then to the north, and then a smaller playground to the east. And then there's opportunities to have some outdoor classrooms within, just adjacent to the building. So when we look at this, the highlights of this design, it's got the most parking spaces of the 4 schemes, 106. I'm a landscape architect, so I'm used to arguing about parking spaces and how I'd rather have more open space than parking spaces, but that's a different story. We have a large play field, we have 2 playgrounds. In all schemes, we have a separate bus and parent drop-off locations and routes, which we felt was very important after talking to James and his team. Obviously, there's a reduction in the impervious surfaces over the site today, which again is very important. The vehicular drop-off zones and the bus zone require 2 separate entrances that are centrally located. The bus drop-off zone does separate the open space slightly from parts of the building, and the overall play area for outdoor play is smaller because we have the largest number of parking spaces.
Smaller than other options?
Yes. So if there's any comments, feel free to ask questions, or I'll just go through all and then we can circle back. So concept B, again, perimeter loop with the vehicle, the parent drop-off taking that perimeter route, and the bus drop-off coming around to the north and then back down to the south, again roughly dropping off in the same place as the last location. The main difference here is that the central route for the bus dissects the site and the play spaces, which is unfortunate about this scheme. Delivery and receiving in the same place, but the parent drop-off, rather than being on the western side of the building, now is on the southern side, but still somewhat centrally located, and again separated the 2. So if you look at this, again, we have 2 large playground spaces, some outdoor teaching spaces. On the western side, we've incorporated a nature walk with some educational signage, because, again, we want to get people outside, and there's opportunities to teach kids outside as well as inside. So thinking about how we can create those connections between in exterior and interior spaces. And then a large play field. But as I mentioned, there is a...
Where is that walking path that's currently used by walkers? If you were, see how
It's like, see, it says
dash?
old school, it's like straight down.
Is it
It's
straight down?
Yeah, you're talking about Goldie Drive?
Yeah.
And this
one? No, that one, but there's one on
There's
the
one to
south
Crescent.
side.
The one that goes to Crescent
Okay,
Street.
I was just wondering
Oh,
where
okay.
that.
Oh, the
yeah,
other side. I think
The one that goes out to Crescent Street would be up where where the playground is, and heading out that way.
Okay, and then the one.
And the other one.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
And then with all schemes, there's an exterior sidewalk loop that again could be used as exercise for the children, or just again, for connection to the local mobility. So then we look at the highlights of this. This is the largest playfield. Still 2 playgrounds, a nature walk with an outdoor classroom. Again, green infrastructure will be incorporated. Again, reduction in the impervious surfaces on the site. Smallest number of parking spaces on this scheme, 65. The bus drop-off routes separate the main play lawn from the building. Obviously, when the kids are out there going to that play lawn, there won't be many vehicles coming through that space, so it's not such a safety hazard. And then the vehicular drop-off zones require, again, 2 separate building entry points.
Is my math accurate? Are you proposing 106 parking spots?
In the other one.
In the first scheme,
In the
yes.
first one.
So if I look at the traffic study, it shows you're gonna have 142 cars parked.
We haven't gotten a final parking count, so these are just concepts, but you're right. I think you're right that these are shy on parking.
I mean, he's been working on this, while the traffic was working on that,
Right.
you know, we couldn't wait
Yeah, and
for
you go
one
over
to
that,
do the
it's
other.
Like 250 staff on top of it.
They're going to be able to do
But with each one of these schemes, there's opportunities to add parking. It obviously reduces the amount of open
Yeah,
space.
yeah, I mean, the traffic is not the same as who's parking there. So the parking is gonna be based on staff, some visitor, you know, that type of thing.
Right now, we're just over 200 and some in the district, so,
Yeah.
you know, so probably, staff in your building now,
50?
40, 90, plus Spring Street.
65 is not gonna cut.
No,
No way. But 106 might not either.
So when we look at concept C, this time the bus is taking the exterior route around the building and dropping off on the southern side, and the car loop is coming off in front of the building, and again dropping off the children for the location on the eastern side. This one has 92 total parking spaces.
Can I just ask a question from the person who does pick up and drop off every day here? A couple of years ago, the police department required us to revamp our pickup and drop off system for one door. We used to do it separate, where there's buses were one place and parent pickup was in another, and they required us to change that because they wanted entrance and exit, everyone coming and going from one door. So I just want to put that out there. I don't
We have
know
a
if
scheme
the
that does
chief-
that.
Okay.
And I think the chief made comment on this last meeting too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be good to have those conversations a little, I mean, I get that's what you've been doing.
Right.
But
I
it's
think it
worth
was
having
from a
those
safety-
conversations, because
Sure.
rules and threats and, you know, all this stuff is
I
always
think it was, you know,
evolving.
one door being open, all eyes on one door, so I just want to make sure that he's.
it's a little different. Howard has 2 doors, but they're in very close proximity.
Right.
I think it's really eyes on who's, you know, at those entry points and who's staff there.
I mean, I think our idea, if we did have 2 at 2 different sides, would be that they were both arriving in the same lobby. They'd be both coming there. And then everything locks down, and then you decide, you know, which side visitors, and, you know, throughout the school day, if someone's coming, they're only coming to one door. But again, it's all about the movement of the people, and what we're showing is, and you can experience it, you know, having buses and parents in the same exact spot is never really ideal. That's part of the flow.
So in this scheme, you know, we're showing a multi-sports core play area, which again could be a playground. We have another playground on the eastern side, the exterior loop. In this option, we have a community garden and some outdoor classrooms. So the highlights: large playfield, still two playground spaces, separated again, bus and parent drop-off zones. The parent drop-off is located at the front of the building, which we've heard is ideal. The community garden, green infrastructure, again reduction in impervious surfaces. The main parking lot is further away from the building, but we have 92 total spaces. And again, these numbers can shift and change, but obviously the more parking we have, the less space we have for the children to play. So can't give you everything. We're good, but we're not that good. Then the parent drop-off routes are separate, kind of separate the play spaces, and the vehicular drop-off zones require 2, again, building entry points. So, drum roll. Option D has 1 central entry point for both for both parent and bus drop-off. We're showing a pre-K drop-off entrance on the north side, but if there's some reworking of the interior of the building, we believe that all 3 entrances could be located on the northern side of the building. That's what James whispered in my ear when I arrived.
So let me speak to that a little bit. Everything we've shown has been, the shared spaces in the middle with a wing reaching out this way and an academic wing reaching out this way. I think we will be exploring options, we will be exploring options that have, all of the central spaces at one end and an academic wing that's a little bit, longer, that houses 2 grades per floor. How that translates into the pre-K to 6, I have to think about again. But so that's kind of what Jonathan's alluding to. This shows an option that enters at the center all in one place.
There, by the way.
This shows an option that has both of these traveling not a huge distance, but a little distance to an entry here. There will be options that perhaps have an entrance over here, which might work with this option as well.
Yeah, so what this scheme does, it pushes all the vehicular traffic to the northern side of the site and gives the kids and the teachers the public spaces around the building and not in conflict with any vehicles whatsoever. So, this is a good, successful scheme if you think about it holistically, the open spaces that are directly right outside the front doors of the building. So again, 2 play fields in this one. There's a playground. There's another multi-use sport court, which could be another playground. Again, this is high-level concept design. We've got outdoor classrooms on the western side of the building, and then an outdoor teaching space on the southern side. And then if we look at the highlights, the open space areas are connected to the building with no vehicular conflicts. We've got 2 play fields, 2 playgrounds, still separated parent and bus drop-off zones. The vehicular drop-off zone requires 1 central building entry. We've got an outdoor teaching area, green infrastructure, impervious surface reduction. The parking lot is located slightly away from the building, 86 total spaces that again could increase in size. And then it's the furthest walk to the designated pickup zones, but again, still not that far from the main entrance for the kids to walk to those pickup spots.
It would require the bus students to cross over in front of the parent pickup, parent drop-off.
Yeah, but there'll be a crosswalk there, there'll be signaling, so not signaling, but signage, so it's only like crossing a normal street.
Can you go back to the automotive diagram, the first one of this? In theory, those could switch, but it's the same. In some ways, it's the same problem. That kids getting out of the car are crossing. The other thing is that the door to the bus is on the right-hand side, right? So in either location, kids are getting out on the right-hand side and crossing.
Any questions about any of those schemes?
It'd be great to get some comments.
Yeah,
A couple of things. One, both of them were things that came up early on in this school. With your traffic patterns, you looked at for the fire trucks and such already?
Turning radiuses and stuff have not been done, but they need to be, yep.
So the other thing is on your delivery entrance, the way you have a short receiving area, they use fairly large trucks when they deliver to the school. And if you don't have some way like they did here, angling them in, you can't have a delivery while anytime you have drop off. And I remember when this one was done, it's like an act of God to get them to come when you want them as opposed to when they want to come. So that's got to be any delivery to that entrance has to be out in traffic.
So are we,
Yeah.
what are,
Well, we'll get, I mean,
Okay.
Just
We all
because it
sort of- yeah.
happened before, and I remember things being discussed, so I
we have,
bring it up.
we will have in-depth conversations with food service and everything to find out sizes of trucks, quantity of delivery, times of delivery, you know, all of that. So none of that's in here
Yeah,
yet.
this is
but it's
more
all-
big
It's all
picture.
very important stuff. I mean, you know, usually schools get a really, the 18-wheeler comes in August and all the paper supplies, one shot. That happens a lot. You know, things like that, trying to figure out the schedules and what's needed for the circulation. But the turning radiuses, we'll get all the information about the fire trucks, the exact sizes and their turning radiuses, which again, there's a program for that on the computer that makes sure that all works. So,
Is
yeah.
there a maintenance garage?
No,
No?
maintenance garage.
Yeah, they're gonna wanna be able to bring equipment in and out for the winter.
Oh, you're talking about storage, just some kind of storage?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question too. I mean, you know,
But
usually
keep in
it's some
mind-
snow blowers, a couple snow blowers for the sidewalk. What else you got? So
Well,
those are all things we'll have to.
Tractors that come in and out
Yeah.
for plowing and
Yeah.
so forth.
And it is a good question because, you know, we'll also have to find out, like, is the school property maintained by the school district or by the town?
School district.
Right? I mean, those are all, you know, so all of these things will, but a whole fancy garage, I don't think you're gonna get. Maybe a storage room off the, we call it an outdoor storage, but it's a part of the building, but it has doors to the outside. And then we need to make sure that any fuel or anything like that is under a
That has to
certain
be
amount to stay, yeah.
Can you go back to the first concept?
say that
Go
again?
back to the first concept. Sorry, at this one, I didn't understand where that walking path was, so I just wanted to.
I think I would prefer the last concept, just because that puts the field closer to the school and the parking farther away from the school. This concept, I'm not as much in favor of, with the fields being farther away from the school and the kids having to walk through the parking lot to get to the fields. And the same thing with the middle concepts that you had there, where you had the parking on either side of the field. So my opinion would be, I'd be more in favor of the last concept, where it puts the field closer to the school and the parking farther away.
Yeah, I agree. I like having the playgrounds and the green spaces right near the school. I'd say this is probably my second favorite, but I think option 2 is my preferred.
Yeah, we're fine with people parking further away and keeping the kids close to it. Absolutely for safety reasons. And again, it's been stated, but we'll have to vet out the number of parking spaces.
I actually like this one better because we still have access to those play areas without crossing the parking lot, and it allows for the buses to drop off and parents to drop off without crossing each other, and provided that, you know, she allows that, but.
Yeah, one thing about D is that the cars and buses are much more, you know, they're separated at the point of drop-off, but they're traveling around the site together. Whereas in basically all of the other options, they're much more separated.
And the other thing of the parents kind of going around the perimeter is more queuing. More, you know, keeping them moving and more queuing. That's another factor that we'll have to look at.
I apologize if this is outside of the scope of this presentation, but in terms of site work being done like along the entrance, would this school be more visible from North Elm Street? With tree removal and where
Just the flashing light on top.
Because I know it's...
What color?
No, probably not, I would think.
I don't believe so, no.
Because you still have the pinch with the two houses.
Yeah, not until we get past
And
that.
so we are, you know, in all of our instances, we're trying to soften the drive, so you're not going, we're going to eliminate the S curve. I guess it just depends on how many trees we have to take down for that septic system. So.
Sure. Other questions or comments, feedback?
and I think I heard earlier, you have not met with DPW yet, or you have?
We have not.
Because
DPW?
in all scenarios, and I recognize that there's tweaking, there is nothing more mystifying than a traffic study. I've looked at 1,000, and somehow, most of them still actually seem pretty accurate. And I don't know how they get there, but in all the scenarios, you don't have enough parking based on the traffic study. I recognize it can be tweaked, but we also have snow removal to worry about, and when you're gonna put snow and you're already tight. So a conversation with them is certainly gonna be helpful.
Okay.
But it's also something to consider when we talk about what are we doing, pre-K through 6, and the site constraints seeing pre-K through 4, and the parking and site constraints.
Anything else?
Is it possible to locate like outdoor classrooms or that kind of thing in wetland areas? Like since they would not really necessarily disturb the wetland, but
Love to do some boardwalks.
yeah, like boardwalk type
Potentially,
thing.
yeah.
Especially if we're losing space for more parking.
We've done that before, yes.
Anything else? All right, yeah, as we said, we don't need to take any votes, this is just conceptual at this point, so.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we'll develop what we do on the inside with a space program. We develop a site program that says we agree at this many parking spaces is our goal, and we agree that we need 2 play structures for this age group and that age group. You know what that program is for the site. We will get there.
Sarah, did you have another comment?
Do we already do the leads in the notes?
Not yet.
Nope.
It's next.
I know, we had a lot to get through today.
Thanks for that segment.
That's the last item, I believe.
I got off the hook for most of this evening because I already had my big meeting
And
at
before
3.
the meeting is entirely over, this is Caroline, our Northeastern
Co-op.
intern co-op, who was at the earlier meeting and was introduced, but I'm just realizing we did introduce her. She's not just some random person we pulled off the street and said, come sit with us. She's been working on some of the
Sorry,
drawings
that's
with
my fault, I
us.
should have.
Sorry.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
5 more slides. I'm going to do a recap of our Sustainability Subcommittee's kickoff meeting this afternoon. So, here we go. This first overview slide was to just say why is this group meeting, why is this important, why are we here? And what this bar chart is kind of highlighting is that there's only so much energy efficiency you can squeeze out of your building through its systems and, through putting, renewable resources, solar, whatever, on your building to get its energy use down. This orange part is meaning we're having good conversations early to make sure we're making smart decisions. We're putting programs that have similar run times next to one another so that air handling unit can serve those spaces instead of having 2 different air handling units, running to serve 2 ends of the building. And getting things to have synergies of how they're operating plays a big role in making an energy efficient building. Other big overview topic was how does MSBA's guidelines play into the energy efficiency of building and the funding that you're going to get from the state. So West Bridgewater as a community is not in a stretch energy code, you're just base energy code. However, in order to build an MSBA reimbursed building, you do need to build that building. Doesn't change anything for your community, just that building needs to be built to meet the state's stretch energy code. Going the next step beyond that, the state also has the specialized opt-in energy code, and should this committee choose to build the building to meet that code, you will get an additional 3% reimbursement from the state. And then what I didn't add on here to make the slide more complex, there's also an additional 1% that you can get for also choosing a higher level of indoor air quality to pursue. So that's kind of an additional 4% incentives that we could elect to go for. So the only kind of decision that we needed the group to make this afternoon was to decide on a certification system. And I'll step back. again, as part of doing an MSBA project, it does need to be certified by a third party for its attributes. And the options there are either going with LEED or CHIPS, which stands for California High Performance Schools. We're in the Northeast version of that. The little bit of history is that, 15 years or so when rating systems got going, LEED was doing everything from, 3-unit multifamily house to like a 50-story high-rise in New York. And they were trying to cover everything in between there. So but they weren't really getting very specialized yet when they got going. That's where CHIPS kind of came in and said, hey, let's do this better for schools. Let's have a rating system that's really more focused on a school building type, and a lot of their credits became more specialized for what a school building is building, what are the concerns and the right attributes to be focusing on for a school. That's why this building that we're in right now is a CHIPS certified school. Now, where we are 15 years later, everyone's evolved a bit. LEED has definitely kind of taken the lead and is much more of an industry leader in a variety of different building types. LEED now has a LEED for Schools pathway that we would be following with LEED. So they've kind of caught up on taking a better look at each building type unto itself. Also, it's the more familiar to not just the design professionals, but also the construction team as well. So there's a lot of credits that the construction team has to provide paperwork for. So they're more kind of in tune with having that paperwork and those spreadsheets that they've got on file to be able to comply with that. And the one other big takeaway that I presented to the group this afternoon is that LEED very much relies on the design team and the design team to be proving compliance and providing all that documentation for meeting the credits that you're going after. CHIPS has an additional component that's heavy on O&M, operations and maintenance, that looks to the owner of the building to say, here's policies that we want you to be implementing for how you're training folks, how you're maintaining your facility and all of your operations. So and they do look to see, did those policies get voted in by the town? Are they voted in by the school board to make sure everything's operating? So it's not the whole rating system. I'd say, 80-85% of it is still the design team, but there is that 20 to 15% that's now a lift by the town. And in the construction design professionals world, it's not as familiar of credits to us as it is the LEED. And the last takeaway being that both costs are fairly within the same ballpark of one another, because the elementary school size that we're looking at falls into LEED's kind of lowest tier. It's not, we're not building a 500,000 square foot school, so we're able to fall into their lower cost category, which is more equivalent to what a CHIPS building would cost as well. So we had a discussion within the sustainability subcommittee this afternoon, where I think everyone, and I'll let Gary take a lead too, that everyone felt comfortable moving forward with LEED as the third-party verification for this project.
Yeah, so that's the recommendation the subcommittee brings to you for a vote tonight, that basically the motion would be that we pursue LEED certification with the design of this elementary school project. And I'll just also look to Mitch as a recommendation from PMA that we would go with LEED as well.
Yeah, we have, CHIPS can be stringent. It's tough to get all check all the boxes there. They have, in our experience, LEED is just easier to obtain rather than going through the CHIPS process. And at the end of the day, like some of those stringent requirements can hold us up at the end. So we would recommend LEED just based on our experience.
And some of you might remember for this project, we did follow basically the CHIPS process, but it was a different framework with MSBA. They were asking us to do CHIPS as an incentive for reimbursement. So that doesn't exist anymore. So basically, they mandate you to do a certification with one of these two programs, but it isn't connected with reimbursement points like it was when this project was built. So as I said, therefore, the recommendation from the sustainability subcommittee is that we pursue LEED certification with a design of the elementary school project. So I'll take that as a motion. Somebody.
Just a quick question.
Yep.
The reimbursement, those subject to the MSBA reimbursement caps?
Which reimbursements?
Yes, I think so.
Which ones?
The 3% and the 1%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Motion moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? So voted. Thank you.
All right. And final two summaries, and then we'll just go in order. Debating which was going to take longer. The other topic we just began discussion on, and will future decisions to come, is that as we get into schematic design phase, so that'll be June onward, that will be the time in which we'll have a sustainability workshop, which is a time in which we'll have a more holistic discussion about sustainability. And by holistic, I mean it's going beyond just the energy efficiency of the building. You see my little diagram here with all these categories. We want to talk about daylight, the materials we're using, really what is the occupant, the students, the teachers, how is the building going to support their livelihood in the building so that it's supporting their health, making it a good environment for them to work and learn in. So there'll be more discussions to come about the who, when, where on that as we get closer to schematic design. And we rounded out the meeting talking about various potential HVAC options. This slide, and so this our engineer from GGD presented this afternoon. The variety of options we'll be carrying at the moment is all about putting together that life cycle cost analysis. So that we had a lot of discussion of, there are these options. There's VRF systems, air source heat pumps. Are we going geothermal? It's all about, where are we pulling that load from? Is it the air? Is it the ground? Are we using refrigerant? Are we looking at more of a water-based system? So there's a lot of discussion points to come that we'll be having in that sustainability subcommittee, and then be bringing recommendations back here.
I think the bottom line for right now.
It'll all come back to cost.
Yeah, well, it'll come back to cost, but basically, where we're headed is some form of electric-based heat pump, perhaps geothermal involved, but the idea of putting a big gas-fired boiler in or anything like that isn't going to happen. It's just not feasible anymore based on the restrictions, not only with MSBA, but the codes as well for new constructions.
And what I didn't include a slide, there are also the utility incentive programs as well. So we'll be meeting with the utilities, and they also have, their layer of targets that we would be looking to meet in order to be able to get grant funding from them as well.
Unfortunately, I have some slides. They're quick though. Budget update, if you want to just click through the cash flow. I guess does anybody have any questions on sustainability before we move forward? Okay. Cash flow, we're tracking on target. So totals for the date, 405,000. No real issues here as expected for this phase. And then the next slide is just the schedule that we're going over. This is pretty typical here. We're still in the PSR submission, waiting, just so everyone knows, we're still waiting for our PDP comments from the MSBA. We'll give you an update once we get them. We've been asking for them for months. I think we submitted them on December 20th. So last update we had that they were with senior leadership for review. So hopefully we get those within the next week.
Mitch, is it in their guidelines what the response time is supposed to be? I think I asked this one before, but is it published?
I don't think it's a guideline, but we have never seen, I don't think, past 21 days, maybe not even 14 or something recently, so.
I don't remember. Like they're just kind of backed up with.
I think they might be backed up. Yeah, I don't think they're taking the time. I think they're probably just backed up.
Well, we were the only project that went forward at this phase. Yeah, so.
Yeah, at this phase, but I don't know how their internal review works with the other phases and projects and those queues and who's available to review them. But we are waiting for those. We're in the PSR stage. Won't keep everybody waiting tonight. Key dates, just SBC meetings with that community forum on 4/1. So yeah, any questions on budget or schedule? All right,
All right, I know there was a lot of information tonight. Appreciate your patience and input and preparation. Very helpful. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, seeing none. Motion to adjourn. All those in favor? All right, thank you very much. If you did not sign in, there's a sheet right over here in the corner of that area. Sign in on your way out. Thank you.
Thank you.